Hello everyone, it's Friday, woohoo! We're building ahead to Celtic's first competitive match of the season, woohoo! And, woohoo! We've signed an actual outfield footballer, yes! Alright everyone, let's just take things down a notch maybe. That intro was a bit too much. I'm not actually in a good mood. I'm in a cracking mood. I'm delighted. Celtic have signed a player. Paulo Bernardo is announced. He's in. He's back for good, as the club put it when announcing the signing on that wonderful website X. Deal didn't drag on at all. Efficient transfer business from Celtic. It's a 5-year deal for Paulo Bernardo, so that means he's contracted until the summer of 2029. He'll wear the number 28 jersey, just like he did last season, so that's good. And apparently he's straight into training at Lennoxtown, and I assume contention for Sunday's match. I guess we'll find out from Brendan Rodgers whether that is going to be the case. I wouldn't be massively surprised if, like he says, we'll give Bernardo another week to get up to speed. He has been training with Benfica during the summer, as we well know from their Instagram feed. I don't believe he's actually featured in any of their, 5 pre-season matches so far. Certainly when I looked on SofaScore earlier, that wasn't the case. So he may be lacking a little bit of match sharpness. Doesn't really matter. We didn't sign him for Sunday. It's just a case of having him in now and looking forward to seeing what he can bring to the party this season. Nothing major to report in terms of comments from him or the manager, but as I say, he's in, and I'm excited to see what he can do now as a permanent Celtic player. The downside about this signing and the fact that it's dragged out for so long is I've said everything I need to say about Paulo Bernardo. Maybe that's actually a good thing as far as you're concerned. So let's just move on to a couple of names that have come up over the past 24 hours that, I was going to say you may not have heard of. You'll have heard of one of them. Owen Beck has been mentioned again. He's the Liverpool left back who's had at least one loan spell with Dundee. We've been linked with him in the past, and as I say, his name has come up again. I'll be honest, it's a pretty loose link, this one, and that's no disrespect to Mail Sport Merseyside football reporter Lewis Steele, who's pretty well known down south. I think he's got like 21,000 followers on X, so he kind of knows what he's talking about. He put a video out online yesterday from the US, where Liverpool are at the moment, just running through Liverpool's transfer business, and at one point he turned attention to Owen Beck and linked Celtic again. Here's what he said.
With Owen Beck, Celtic are keen. I know that they tried for another left back but failed. But I think Liverpool want a sale rather than a loan, which would rule out Celtic signing Owen Beck. So it'd be interesting to see on that one. There's a few of these players that Liverpool are very keen to sell and not loan.
So yeah, we've been linked with Beck in the past, as I say. I'm not quite sure why Liverpool want to sell him permanently would rule us out. Is it that Celtic are looking for our big left-back signing to be a loan? Certainly the two main ones we've been linked with so far, Hugo Bueno and Owen Beck, have both been loans we've been talking about. I get the fact that like Bueno would probably cost too much for us to buy right now, given that he's like second choice at Wolves and seems to be quite highly rated. I understand that. I don't quite know why we wouldn't be able to sign Beck permanently. Maybe I'm just massively underestimating his value. I don't know. Fees down south are crazy. He might be like a 10, 12, 14 million pound player. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that Owen Beck massively excites me either. Again, I've not really seen him play. And I know Celtic have some sort of interest in him. He would strike me maybe as like the backup player who could come good. I think I'd want something a little bit more proven at left back at this stage. But who knows, it's a name to keep an eye on. The other name we've been linked with, that is a new name, by Sky Sports reporter Anthony Joseph is Philadelphia Union's Hungarian midfielder Daniel Gazdag. Celtic doing due diligence, that's a tongue twister, in the event of Matt O'Reilly leaving, Paulo Bernardo coming in, but they'll likely go for another centre mid if O'Reilly goes. Philadelphia Union's Daniel Gazdag, Southampton's Shea Charles and Venezia's Tanner Tessman among list of targets. Now Gazdag is 28 years old. He has a really impressive goal scoring record in the MLS with the Union, as I'm sure they're called. He's actually their all-time leading scorer in MLS regular league play, according to this article. 51 goals. I think he's only recently broken that record as well. In fact, it's since the Euros. He was at the Euros with Hungary. He's got 26 caps all in for them. Managed only 4 minutes for them at the Euros at the tail end of their second game, a defeat to Germany. So, decent enough pedigree. I'm not surprised at all if this is a player we're linked with. We know Celtic always have their eye on the MLS. We've signed Alistair Johnson. He's the obvious one. 18 months ago we signed Alistair Johnson from the MLS. Going slightly further back and, slightly less successfully, we've had Andrew Gutman and Manny Perez. Unbelievable that I've got that just from the back of my mind there, because I only had Andrew Gutman written down. But Celtic clearly have an eye in the MLS. Is this a player we're going to bring in? Obviously, as I say, Tanner Tessman, who is American, plays for Venezia, and Shea Charles been mentioned as well. Shea Charles seems a little bit convenient. As I said to Stevie the other day, call me cynical, but if we're going to sell Matt O'Reilly possibly to Southampton, I'd rather his replacement didn't come from Southampton as well. That strikes me as a bit of the Carl Starfelt's agent trying to find Starfelt's successor and ending up with Gustav Lagerbielke and Brendan Rodgers not fancying him at all. Of course, if we just keep O'Reilly, we won't have to worry about a replacement. I think it's encouraging, though, the club are definitely looking at replacing O'Reilly if he moves on. Because I think fans had maybe feared that Bernardo would be the replacement, and not to say that in time Bernardo couldn't kind of evolve to become the kind of player O'Reilly is. I think just in terms of sheer numbers, we're down a bit. Signing Bernardo permanently has basically brought us back to where we were last season. So I think if I'm kind of content with that midfield if O'Reilly stays, but if O'Reilly goes, you're looking a little bit light and you need to replace him. So it seems like the club are going to do that. But, let's just try and keep O'Reilly. Right, Kasper Schmeichel was paraded as a Celtic player yesterday at Celtic Park. He met the media, both types, the mainstream media, fan media, as is often the case. For me anyway, the far more interesting stuff came from the fan media press conference. You can actually check that out in full, 15 minutes or so. My good friends at the Celtic Exchange were there, and they've put up the full press conference, so it should be linked somewhere at the top there. Check it out. In terms of the kind of key takeaways from Kasper Schmeichel, he explained why he had his medical in Italy. Huge issue that. No one could really work out why that was the case. Because he was on holiday in Sardinia with his family at the time. He talked up Viljami or Vil Senizalo, both his goalkeeping ability and his humble personality. He spoke about not wanting to use advanced stats to judge his performance. He doesn't feel there is a stat or a set of stats that can be used to measure goalkeeping performance at this stage, which I guess is kind of interesting. He said he's still trying to work out the new UEFA Champions League format. I've got a video I could probably direct you to, Kasper, and I will do another one of them before the draw. And if you have any questions on the Champions League format, you can fire them in any time between now and then, and I'll try and tackle them, because it is maybe a little bit confusing, but I also think it's not really. He said he's this was an issue. He used the term old firm a couple of times, so we'll need to drum that out of him. I'm sure someone at the club will be having a word with him about that. Only kidding on, of course. Kinda. But he did actually reveal he'd been to a derby in the past. Actually, funnily enough, when it was the Old Firm, he'd snuck into a derby when he was at Falkirk. Better have been in the Celtic end. We'll need to cross-reference the derbies that happened when he was at Falkirk and try and work out when Falkirk were playing to work out what match it would have been. And obviously it would have been the home end, I think. But anyway, he seems to have some sort of leaning towards Celtic. Doesn't massively matter. This was interesting. Revealed when he first heard of Celtic's interest. Again, this was a question from Tino at the Celtic Exchange. It was probably 3 or 4 days after we went out of the Euros to Germany. That was probably the first time, yeah. There were a few other bits of interest, but as soon as I spoke to Brendan, there wasn't really a question about what I wanted to do. So, again, having looked when they went out of the Euros, I believe we're talking about Celtic first making contact with Schmeichel around the 2nd or 3rd of July. So was he always our first choice? That would maybe suggest not, although we may have been holding back until he went out of the Euros. That's also, I guess, kind of convenient with the dates. That would make sense. Even if he wasn't our first choice, I think the recent examples of Ange Postecoglou and Matt O'Reilly proved that really doesn't matter at all. So I think he's going to be a brilliant signing. I also loved him saying that he'll be himself. He'll not try and be Joe Hart. Which struck me as a very Joe Hart thing to say, ironically. In fact, you could almost imagine everything Schmeichel said being uttered by Joe Hart. So again, I've been over this ground many times. I think he's going to be a great signing for us. I think he's going to be a great goalkeeper, great figure in the dressing room as well, really experienced. And I get the impression he's really looking forward to playing for Celtic. He said winning is what motivates him. So, yeah, that's really encouraging, and you'll be pretty motivated, I think, at Celtic, Kasper, based on that. So yeah, buzzing for that, and we'll hopefully, we will see him in the starting lineup on Sunday. It's Kilmarnock at Celtic Park. Yes, we're returning to that glorious stadium, and a shout out to my pal Gio, who provides all the photos for this channel, and also amazing drone footage like this of Celtic Park. I'm so jealous of those of you going on Sunday. I miss it a hell of a lot, so embrace it. It's Flag Day. It's a 4:30 p.m. kickoff against Kilmarnock. They went out of the Europa League last night. 1-0 loss to Cercle Bruges, 2-1 in aggregate. It was a bit of a comical goal they conceded, not if you were a Kilmarnock fan, I guess, but for the rest of us, they dropped down to the Conference League now, where they'll face Norwegian side Tromsø. Just on that subject, well done to St Mirren. They battered Valur 4-1 last night. They'll face another Norwegian side, Brann, in the next round of the Conference League. So a couple of Scotland v Norway matches coming up, and let's hope that Killie and St Mirren advance as far as possible, help the coefficient, and maybe get us back to a point where we can get our automatic Champions League place back as soon as possible. In terms of Celtic team news, little doubts over Nicholas Kuhn and Dyson Maeda. We will get clarification from Brendan Rodgers today. The latest we have after the Chelsea game is him saying Nicholas was stretching in training and felt a sore back. He probably needs a few days. Dyson was just a clash in knees, and there's no need to risk anything at this stage of the season. Hopefully he'll be okay when we get back. Alistair Johnson seemingly available again. He's certainly back at Lennoxtown training. Paulo Bernardo seemingly available again. We'll get clarification from Brendan Rodgers today. Before that, this is the team that I'm going for the game. Yeah, Kasper Schmeichel in goal. I do think Anthony Ralston might start the game just because he's got more matches under his belt. Well, Alistair Johnson has none for Celtic in pre-season. Carter Vickers, Scales, Taylor completes the back line. Most of the rest of the team picks itself. Certainly the midfield, I'm pretty certain it'll be McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatate. Kyogo will be the forward. Maeda will be the left winger, assuming that he's fine injury-wise. And right wing's a toss-up between James Forrest and Nicholas Kuhn. I am happy with either. I just sense it might be Nicholas Kuhn that starts the match, but it's not a major issue for me. So yeah, looking forward to it. By the way, I did mention on yesterday's video that I was going to have my good pal and Kilmarnock fan, Callum, who was on at the end of last season before we gubbed them 5-0 on for a chat, just to chat about the game, to speak a bit about Killy. That is something I'm going to do this season, by the way, chatting to fans of other teams, make that a bit of a regular-ish feature. Probably not for every game, but certainly the big ones, because I think it's always good to get a view from other teams' supporters. I mucked up the days a little bit again, and going to get Callum on tomorrow instead. That'll be on the tomorrow's video that's exclusively for members of Celtic A.M. So I'll have a chat with Callum, and it means that I'll be able to react to Brendan Rodgers' press conference as well. So yeah, if you want to watch that video, you know what to do. Become a member of Celtic A.M. for a small monthly fee. You'll also get cool other benefits, like being able to listen to all our videos as audio-only podcasts when you're out and about. Let's see what this guy's saying. Totally mind-numbing subject. Why? Fabulous. God, I'm such a cheery guy these days. So yeah, if you want to become a member, you know what to do. Link is in the description. And I'll speak to you there tomorrow if that's the case. For the rest of you, have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for your continued support of the channel. Enjoy the game on Sunday. Enjoy Celtic being back. Let's hope we can get to the top of the league as soon as possible. And yeah, I'll be back pretty soon to talk about all of the action.